So before we start applying a few panels to it, and I'll show you how you can create those sorts of things in a very, very quick tutorial, we can apply materials to different faces. Because at the moment this is just a mass. Okay, so if I went to the massing and site and hid the mass, then we wouldn't see anything. Okay, there's no Revit geometry as such, it's just the mass geometry. So we need to apply objects to these surfaces. So we've got model by face, so a curtain system, a roof, a wall and a floor. So let's start with the wall, and if I click on the wall by face, then I get the properties of walls. These are basic walls. So let's say I wanted this type of wall. I could then just apply to any of these faces. Okay, even the meshes. But I'll apply to this face, and let's go around the back and apply to this face as well. And it's telling me here that we can't keep the wall extended to wall, so I'll just unjoin the elements. So I've got two separate sort of walls there. For this bit, let's put a curtain system in, and we'll create system after we've selected multiple. So I'll just pick this surface and then create system. And this is going to give me a 4x4 curtain system, so this is where I check for that. So create system, and that's just giving me glass grid, and these are perpendicular to the edges, so they're not square to the surface. So that's a very simple curtain system. If I selected the system itself instead of the grid line, so I'm hover over the edge, select that, then number of grids, so grid 1, let's pop in say 10 on that one, apply that, so that's tightened up that way, and grid 2 is this grid, and we can pop in say 20 in that plane, and then that splits this up much more neatly. Okay, so that's a curtain system, and then on that curtain system we would then choose the mullions and maybe all grid lines, and then select that, leave it, do a bit of calculating, and then we've got a curtain system in there on that surface. Okay, so that's a curtain system. Walls by face, that one and this one. We can put a roof by face on as well, so if we go to the roof option on the architecture tab, we can go down to this icon, roof by face, and basic roof. Let's go for a generic and just click on that surface and then create roof. You've got to remember to click on this bit, and then that's popped our roof on top. So now if we decided on the massing and site tab to turn off the mass, then we can start to see actual Revit elements. Okay, so this grid system, this, the roof and the back wall, and then these things are up for grabs. If I clicked on this, then I could edit the profile and create some different forms in that. So we're back into sort of standard Revit mode now, but I need to do some extra bits and pieces with the floors. So for that I need to see the mass. Before I can create a Revit floor, I need to create a mass floor, and to do that I select the mass itself. So click on the mass, and then you get this option here. So mass floors, click on that, and this relates back to the levels in our elevation view. Okay, if we didn't have levels that went from 0 to 10, then we wouldn't be able to create our mass floors. So if I click on the level 0 and shift click to level 10, that's selected all the levels. Then I click in one of these boxes, any one. That's going to put ticks against all of them, and then I can say OK. So that, as we can see, has put floors in up to level 10. Now we've got more space to put some floors in, so if we go back to our elevation, east will do, so we can see that we've got a bit more space. So I could probably pop in another 3 or 4 floors here. If I can select that and see this value, then I can click on that, and I'll go another 1, 2, 3, I'll go 15, and then enter. That's going to create these levels. So then I can go back into my massing environment and add some extra floors. So click on the mass, doesn't matter which environment I'm in, mass floors, and I can pick the extra ones. This one, this one, this one, this one, and that one. OK that, and then we've got mass floors for the remainder. So I'll go back to our 3D view. So now we can see we've got sort of mass floors going all the way up. So with these mass floors, I can now create proper floors. So floor on the model by face, or in the architecture tab under floors, we floor by face, and then select multiple. Just select all of them. It's only going to pick up the floors. So it's, even though it's selected everything, it's only looking for floors. Then we can create floor. And that's based on our standard type. The line in sketch is slightly off axis and may cause inaccuracy as well. We'll just have to live with that because that's where it's from. Okay, so now if we turn off our mass, so back to massing and site, then it's starting to look a bit more like something we can actually deal with. So you see the floor up there as well. Now the last thing that we need to do is just to look at some curtain systems. So we've got a curtain system that's on this face, and we've got a curtain system that's on this face here. So again, let's show the mass. And we've got something we need to do with that. I'll leave this blank, but I'll show you very briefly how we can create a very simple hexagonal pattern-based family and a very simple adaptive family. Now for the basic pattern-based family, we need to make sure we use the same grid pattern as we've got in this environment, otherwise it's not going to work with it. So we go to the application button, let's just maximize this, application button and new family, and we look for curtain panel pattern based, these ones here. Okay, so I'll click on open, and this takes me to this environment where I can click on this grid, and under my properties I'll go down to hexagon. So this has now created the hexagon grid for me, and this gives me a reference line which is a path and these nodes which I can do all sorts of different things with. I'm going to choose something very, very simple. I'm just going to put a basic circular frame around this, and I'm going to put a glazed material on there as well. But you could do all sorts of different interesting things, which again, if you're interested in, a guy called Zach Cron is the chap to look for. His website, builds.blogspot. It's a real revelation for understanding the ins and outs of the parametric families and curtain-based systems as well. So I need to create a node on this so I can use that as a reference plane. So I'll pick this thing here, so point element, and I'll click anywhere along this edge, and that's going to be fine. And then I can click on that, and this is giving me my reference plane to draw from. So a circle, and then I'll click on that reference plane and just drag it out, so it's about 400 mil. That'll be fine. I could control this by adding a parameter to it, but again, I'm not going to. So I select the path, so that's picked up the path. Then I can control select this circle, and then I can create form like so. That's just created a framework thing for me. So now if I go to wireframe, then I can see this path again. If I select this again, then I can create form, and it's going to give me a solid form, and it's going to show me two options. I've either got this thing or I've got this flat thing. So if I choose this flat thing, that's that done, and I can go back to hidden line, and I've got now a surface in the middle. So all I need to do with that surface is give it a simple material, and if I click on this again, these things that you see are parameter driven things. If I clicked on one of these things, then it takes me to the associate family parameter with this object. Again, that gives you much more flexibility, but once again, we haven't got time really to go into all this. So I'm just picking a material. I'm going to go for a simple glass material, see what we've got. So that's glass. The appearance is this material, which doesn't have anything applied to it. So if I get glass frosted and bang that into that, then that might be slightly better. So I can frosted glass appearance. And if I said OK, so then I want to make sure that my glass frosted uses the render appearance for the view. So then I can say OK. And if we select, tab into that and select that and give this a material, and again we can load up some plasticky color or aluminium. So aluminium, magnesium, aluminium bronze, there you go. Zoom into that and OK that. I keep forgetting to use the render appearance for it. So there you go. And the reason I can't see it, I've just realized this is because I'm not on shaded mode. So there you go. So we've got a panel that we can now load into our project. So if I click on this, load into project, I'm going to load it into the mass family, not the project, and say OK to that. So then in my mass environment I can select this, and under the hexagon option I've now got family 1. Now if I'd given it a name, then the name would have appeared there. So I can click on family 1 instead, and that's going to apply that family to that surface. Now I can load back into project, project 1, OK, overwrite existing version. So let's do that. And now I've got this appearing in this project. So again, if I turn off my show mass, then this is what we've ended up with. So we've got some sort of system. Now it does cut it off at these points, and this is where the adaptive families come into play. You could make something that would adapt to these interesting sort of edges, but that is for another day, definitely. So if we were to adjust the mass, so again I'm jumping back to the massing environment, so go to the mass. Let's to say I was going to tab into maybe the node on the corner, like so. And I was going to pull that out a little bit along that face. It's going to take a while to update, but there you go. So it's done that. This is how flexible this thing can be. If I load that back into project, OK that, overwrite existing version, then that changes there. However, this hasn't changed because this has been applied in the model and the roof also. So if I selected this wall, then I could update to face. And if I select the roof, then I could update the face. So it gives you, as I said, huge amounts of flexibility. This has come direct from the family, the mass environment, so this is already updated. But these two elements were created in the model, and so they need to be updated to the face. Okay, so the final bit is to create a very simple adaptive family, and I'll apply that then to the mesh. So I'm going to show you how you can create an adaptive pattern-based family. It's not necessarily a pattern-based family, but it's an adaptive component that will then match itself to the nodes on this. We have to create one that is 4 nodes big. Now you could create a bigger one, but because we've got this grid set up like this, then we'll create one that's got 4 node points, and then we can repeat that pattern along this mesh. Okay, so to do that side of it, and this opens up a whole world of possibilities then, and you create adaptive families for filling in the edges around here, for example. The application button, and then new, and then family, and just cancel out from that, and we are looking at a generic family, so metric generic model adaptive. Open that, There's currently family 4. I've been faffing around with this for a little bit. So to start off with, we need to put node points on these things. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we use this option on the draw. It's a point element. And then we just click once, twice, 3 times, and 4 times. Then we select them. And you have to do this with however many points we put in. 4 in this case, but it could be, you know, as many as you want. We have to then make these adaptive, and that gives these reference values 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is the order in which we click them when we've created a family. The next thing we need to do is to create some spline lines. Now if you use the straight line, it's not going to work, so we have to use the spline. Now we could select these points, so if I did that and created a spline through points, it's going to create some weird shape. I don't want it to do that. I want to create a framework for it, and then we can host a point element on that, and then we can carry on as we did in the previous family. So with the spline through points, I'll click on that point, so make sure it goes to the point, not anything else, to this point, and then hit escape, and then go from this point to this point, hit escape, that point to that point, slightly off axis, that's okay, hit escape, as long as it's going from point to point, and then we're good to go. Now what we need to be able to check is that these things are going to move with everything else. If I select one of these and I get the gizmo and I click on the blue direction, it should pull these things with it. If I click on this one and pull this one out, it should also attach those, and similarly that. So as long as it's doing that and nothing else, then we are good to go. So I'll just step this back a little bit so we're on the right levels, and then I can host another point element on this path, hit escape, and then we've got the reference plane to which we can draw our shape like so. So let's not have it a meter, let's have it about 200 mil, and then by selecting this path and this point element, I can create form, because it's a circle on the path. So create form, and that's going to create a form for me. So let's just do another check to make sure that it's behaving the way it is. So the form is following along. So I'll just step that one back, and now I'm going to select that reference grid again and create form, and it's this type of form that I want, just a flat plane. And then we'll add some materials like we did previously. So if I select the outer frame and choose a wooden finish, let's say, let's load that up into this and OK that. And again, we'll just go for shaded, and again, just make sure I make the render appearance, so that gives it the color, and then I can select this surface and put a glazed, so glass in there, and let's come down and choose something like bronze glass this time. So that goes up there, use render appearance, and OK to that. So then we've got this thing. So with this created, I can then load this into project. So all I'm doing is creating it in this family environment and then load it into the massing environment, not the project environment. The massing environment is important because you get extra functionality within this environment. If I did it into the project environment, I could use it and snap it to the grid, but I only get the chance of doing it one at a time. There's a function in the massing environment that allows me to repeat. So I say OK to that, and then here it is, attached to the end of my cursor. So then I'll come up to these node points, and it's important that these are turned on, otherwise you couldn't snap to them. And I'll click there, and then it's adapting to the shape. So 3 and 4, and then hit escape. So that's what I've created. Now I can select this form, and then I get this option on the modify. It's like an array, but it's got a little P sign next to it. It's the repeat. So if I click on that, then it's going to just repeat this pattern on this grid. It's a very, very nice function. Okay, so that's an adaptive family. I then load this into the project, which is my project 1, overwrite existing version, and then the adaptive family is going to appear on this, like so. So now we can turn off our show mass, and we're starting to construct these sorts of things. Okay, that's enough about this sort of thing. Its possibilities are absolutely endless. Adaptive families are incredibly useful, as are the pattern-based curtain systems. Okay, so it's all nice. Just remember that you need to, in elevation, you need to make sure that the elevation views are set. And if we just come down and change that to that and this to shaded, then we're starting to get some sort of idea of how it all looks. I'll finish off with a couple more things on stairs, because we need to look at the sketch-based system, and then we are pretty much up to date.